Shalom Aleichem. Thank you very much for joining this special program, this conversation about Chassidus and Yutas Kislev. Yutas Kislev is the day when the Alter Rebbe not only went out of prison, but it's the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. We know famously that the Alter Rebbe read the pasuk when he went out of prison. He read the pasuk Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, and the pasuk is not only referring to the Alter Rebbe's personal going out of prison, but in general, every Yid has this B'diya B'Shalom. The Rebbe speaks about how a Yid goes out of his own personal imprisonment and he becomes free through Chassidus. And so let's start out a little bit on that. What does it mean? What does it mean, Pada B'Shalom? What does it mean that we go free through Chassidus? And how is that? What does that look like today? Rabbi Gerari, can you start?
Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this conversation, and to start by wishing everyone a good Yontif and Lashana Teva B'limud Chassidus B'darkei Chassidus Tikaseva V'seichasemu, as the traditional bracha is. So, as you mentioned, the Alter Rebbe, all the Geulas, all the Geulas of the Rabbeim, all connected with the pasuk Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, and as we know, the Mamorim are filled with different explanations, different angles of what it means. I suppose, in a nutshell, Pada B'Shalom Nafshi means that there is, on some level, there is the neshama, there's the yid, and there's a menagid, there's opposition, there's velt, there's the pulls and the challenges that come from olam hazeh, from this world that is mailim v'mastir, conceals the obviousness of Elokus. And it's our job to overcome that. And obviously, there's many different ways, as the Rebbe explains in so many places. One way is to fight and to be b'derech milchama, but when there's a war, you might be menatzech, you might win the war, but there's still opposition. And there's, of course, Pada B'Shalom. Pada B'Shalom, again, so many different madregas that's spoken about, but essentially, Pada B'Shalom means transformation, where you're able to overcome that which stands in the way of Avodas Hashem, particularly through the limud of Chassidus and the ways of Chassidus, to that there shouldn't be any opposition. That should be an obvious thing. That Elokus should be, and Avodas Hashem should be something that's such an obvious thing. That's the only way. Ein oid milvader, and so on and so forth, where it becomes more automatic. It becomes more transformative, with all the different levels, as we said. But that's, I think, the essence of what it's all about.
Thank you.
Can I bring it?
Sure.
I want to bring it down everything in a very hasty, celebrative way. It's in my experience, I was in a place called prison. A prison is a place a person cannot free himself. He has to have people from the outside to free himself. So in the B'diya B'Shalom, he's talking about there's a part of the neshama, it's a part of ourselves. If a person finds himself in a problem, he feels trapped. He feels overwhelmed mentally, maybe emotionally. And if he's going to try from there, or if a person got involved with something that he feels trapped and that's dragging him down, there's a part of himself that has never been touched by the experiences that we have down here. There's a part of ourselves that we know we have from Tshuva that has never been part of any of the experiences we have down here. It's not bothered by any of it. If we access that part of ourselves that is free, then we can have a pelamamish. In other words, if a person finds himself in the problem, he's in a war. He has this pulling him and that pulling him, and he wonders how is he going to get out of this thing. And he knows himself, his weaknesses, he knows himself, his encounters, he knows himself, everything that. So he feels trapped, and then so obviously he's supposed to go to a Rav, so try to get help. But the Pada B'Shalom Nafshi tells us that there's a part of us that was never impacted by our experience, and we're trapped, we're free. And if we live with that B'Shalom, we live Yechida, which means living, what Mesha was saying about that level of neshama that's higher, which you can do very practical through doing a mitzvah with given overness, kite. So then that part of the neshama kicks in, part of your daily living, and suddenly you're empowered to free yourself from the problem you have.
Can I just add a little nekudah to that? Just bring it back to Chassidus, because we say we give a bracha limud Chassidus b'darkei Chassidus. Chaim l'bracha. There's a bewusst story with Alter Rebbe that someone once said to Alter Rebbe, talking about another tzaddik who does mofsim and miracles and supernatural ideas. The Alter Rebbe said that that the idea of miracles is lifting yourself one tefach higher than the world. And ich habe aufgegeben 2,000 amas, and I lifted up the world 2,000 amas, because it's talking about the alef chachma, alef chabina, the yin of Chabad, thing. In other words, that this is what you're saying about finding the space where you're completely free. So one of the ways we do this is by limud Chassidus. Limud Chassidus, if we do it properly and we learn Chassidus and we immerse ourselves in the learning of Chassidus, Chassidus lifts a yid up to a whole nother level. And I guess that's what you're saying. It's like it lifts up to a whole nother level where the problem doesn't exist, where you have to taste freedom.
You speak to people and they feel that they're trapped. Of course, they can't find the words up Yiseichel, they can't find the emotional keiches. And once you tell them, you tell yourself. Start with yourself. That mitzad ain't fact. Like you chachapet. You're in a crab. You're fighting with your nafshe bambas. It's harder, and it's pulling you down. You got involved with something which is depressing. Yeah. So pick it. Use the keich you have yourself. Use it as a party that's free. So don't feel trapped. Every time you do tshuva, I'm trying to unsophisticate it. Every time you do tshuva, what are you counting on? You're counting on the part that you connected to the Eibishter that's untouchable. That's the part. So use it for him now too. There's a part that was never impacted. Don't fill yourself down, and use and grow and free yourself. That's a part of Shalom Nafshi to me.
Right. Okay. Let me try to take things a little bit more practical. A person is struggling with the sadness, depression. They have stress, anxiety. A person has what they call an addiction. How is this relevant to them? How is this going to help them? You're speaking about Hadav Shalom with the neshama. When a person is dealing with everyday issues, how is this going to free them from that anxiety, that depression, or addiction, or whatever else it is?
Who are you directing the question to?
Ari, we can start.
So I want to make a little bit of akdama, if I can, just on that particular topic. When we throw around terms like depression and anxiety, it's very important to define what we're talking about, or even addiction. And this goes both ways. What I mean by that is, obviously, we know we live in a world today where there's a lot of awareness. A lot of it is positive on mental health issues and so on and so forth. So I like to use a little expression that I once heard from someone. It depends if you're talking about depression with a big D or a small d, or anxiety with a big A and a small a. There are certain conditions that a person has which are real crises, real health issues. Just like a person, chas v'sholom has a heart attack or suffers from a very big machla. Illness is an illness. An illness, obviously, everything Torah mitzvahs always helps, and of course, we always have to strengthen Torah mitzvahs. That's the ikar keli to any bracha. But at the same time, when a person is sick, you got to go to a doctor. If a person has real depression, I'm talking about real depression, that's a clinical depression and anxiety or addiction, where they're just not able, they've almost lost their on some level their choice, and they really suffering from a real illness, they need to seek professional help. But that's not the topic for today. But I think it's just important to clarify that. However, if you're talking about when and this sometimes gets mixed up, when people just feel down, we all feel down. It's a normal part of human behavior. We feel depressed with a small d. We upset, we're down, we're not, or we worry, or we have tivus, right? A taiva is not an addiction. A taiva is just a taiva, right? And it's very important that a person doesn't call that taiva an addiction, because addiction means like I can't help it. For most regular taivas of a normal human being, we can help it, and we help it by learning Chassidus and following in the ways of Chassidus. In other words, Chassidus, I'm just trying to sort of go back to the wording of your question. What is it? How does it help a person free themselves, right? So if it's the normal type of human behavior, normal type of human challenges, we feel the atzvus, we have taivus, we tempted to do the wrong thing, we're having conflict with other people, whatever the case is, right? So I think it's important to understand that Chassidus is not a self-help book, but, and that's, I think, the important nakuda. Chassidus was about serving Hashem, Chassidus is about Torah mitzvahs, Chassidus is about Achdus Hashem, and realizing there's only really one reality. However, it is absolutely clear, that if you learn Chassidus and you take Chassidus seriously, automatically what happens is you take the Eibishter Torah mitzvahs much more seriously, and you take your own self a little bit less seriously, because that's what Chassidus does. It teaches us a little bit about bittul and about giving ourselves over to the Eibishter, and about the tirekeit. Right, so important to understand. It's not a negative thing, Hashem. It's about the tirekeit of going beyond myself and living a life filled with meaning by being connected to Torah mitzvahs, mitzvah meloshin tzafse v'chibur. So when a person is immersed in that frame of mind, obviously we still have a nefesh habamis, we'll still have a struggle, but nevertheless, when you put yourself in the world of Chassidus and you try a little bit, each person in their own way, in their own path, in their own level madrega, to just make their lives much more centered on a lakus, as we say, lakus b'pshitus, and understand the kavana is really about serving the Eibishter, and serving the Eibishter is brings the ultimate simcha and the ultimate connection. So obviously, b'derech hamela makes it easier to not have so many taivas, makes it easier to be besimcha. When you know that as little people, we have the schus, we have the amazing opportunity to be mamish connected to Eiran Sof Baruch Hu. So obviously, it takes away from the whole. What do we have to be? What do we? If you look at, I think the best thing is to look at older Chassidim. It's an interesting thing. The older Chassidim in Russia. I mean, I think we have a contemporary Chassid. Reb Shalom Mordechai is a good example of this. But to go back to the Mendel Futterfass, the older Chassidim who lived with the greatest challenges and the greatest the Schwerigkeiten Shein Kedem Wasser. And they were unbelievably happy people. Everyone ever saw Mendel Futterfass sad? Whenever I met him, he was always happy. Right? The Simcha Rabba, why? In fact, I once saw if we can just bring it out.
At zufrieden Schmeichel.
At zufrieden, exactly. Allemaal geschmeichelt. I once saw why. Because he lived in a different world. It's a overgeheven another world. I'll tell you a little personal thing that I once noticed. There was someone that once made a video of a Mendel Futterfass from David Reichek traveling in California, I think it was. And they were very different, each in their own way. Mamash Shaved Hashem, right? And there was no minion. There was a Chavarf, they were there collecting a maimon, whatever they were going for their shlichusim. And the Mendel Futterfass about to start davening, he takes off his tefillin, the gita kush the tefillin. It's just such an amazing tzir. You saw a person ad lib sein tefillin. He loves his tefillin. He loves the mitzvah. Look, when you live in that kind of frame of mind, what have we got to be sad about? I'm not saying we're still human people, or we're still normal, and we'll have any seriousness. But that's the mindset that we have to try and understand. That's the mindset that Chassidus, by learning Chassidus, and of course the lashon we're talking about Yitas Kislev is darkei Chassidus. When we put ourselves we aspire at least to learn Chassidus Yedainu Lefin Yonoi and go to the darkei Chassidus. It transports us to a different world, takes away the worries, we talk about Bitochen. We know we're in the hands of the Eibishter, and we have that schus to be connected to the Eibishter. So it b'derech mamela takes away being sad, takes away worrying, takes away anxiety on a normal level, as I've said before.
If you take so most of the time just if you take it just on the other, let's go the other way. That what you ask, a person is depressed, is anxious. Why is he depressed? Why is he anxious? Is he sitting in jail with a 27-year sentence in high school? What's the anxiety? What's the depression? So it'll answer you. They'll say, well, they're depressed about how the life is going. Maybe let's take an example which we are discussing now. They visualize themselves in a different way. They have this taiva, they have this drive that they know is wrong, and it's pulling them down, and they're depressed about it. Or they did something which actually they found out a part of them they don't like about themselves, Let's take we're talking. There's so many different variables. We say guys examine the press. You have to ask, is it specific? What the Geshen? So let's take an example of a Pol B'Shalom Nafshi. So if a person finds out that they have an anxiety, they can't get off the internet, whatever they're doing. I just had an example today. I met with somebody today. Yeah. Does that mean because they have this particular or specific, or they have this connection to the world in a way they can't get rid of, that they're now that they're a bad person, as somebody told them, that they're a person that can until they get rid of that, side of them, that what they're doing that they can't right now. Does that mean that they're finished, they're no good, or does it mean that there's a part of them that's not connected to that whatever they're involved with right now? So if they agree that there's a part of them that is dragged. Now, in words of Sid, there's never shulchan neshama, but this sounds sophisticated. I like to simplify things. There's a part of them that is in prison. The goof is in prison. Oh, but the ikid is there's a part that's not in prison. So how are you going to get out of your prison? How are you going? So you say. So the answer is there's a part of you that's not tainted. There's a part of you that is always good. You can't say, and therefore I can continue being in prison. A part of me. That means I have to use the part that I'm not in prison with, and I got to live with that part and use that keich. What's that keich? How do you access that keich? So it says it means a part of me that whatever it is, I don't want to be separate from the Bittless. So if I start thinking of myself that way, from there I can now help access to pull myself. My seichel becomes clear, can get pulled out of it. I can find the energy that I need to actually heal myself. So I can, so the same idea. But you go to a person and say, they did something that's unforgivable. Well, again, so if they feel that they're trapped, again, so they rather just try to find different ways to make themselves happy. But if you realize that there's an aspect of Pol B'Shalom Nafshi, there's a part of you that you can have a fight, but you come out of this in a peaceful fight, right? So where's that come from? So this then shows the person that yes, there is work to do on one part of me, but I'm not doomed to be in jail because I have a part of me that's free. I live like this every single day. So this is why this talks to me, and this not talks to me. I push it, but you could push it. This is very real, down to earth, where a person could know that he has a taiva, he has a certain. I'm not talking about taiva to eat. I'm talking about something which is also, and you know that he tangled with tumor, he got involved with tumor, and then tumor comes and presses you. Why am I like this? That's the wissen. There's a part of you that's not. There's the Chassidus benefesh. There's a part of you that is untainted. It's free actually. So start living with that. That's what you have to do. Start living with that, and automatically you'll become free. So this is how you can take away your depression. You have to say, I'm depressed. We're depressed. Some people get depressed because they had a bad coffee in the morning. You try to say big D, small D. Today everything is trauma. If you're driving on the highway and somebody passes you, it's a traumatic event. And it's a scar. If you're on line for Starbucks for coffee and somebody gets, he didn't go, we throw around words loosely, and therefore the conversation somehow gets skewed.
Just to be most of it, going back to what you said before about that, the part of the person is in the struggle, the part of the person is free, which obviously that sums up a lot of Chassidus, right? So I think that's important because I want to go back to what I said before. It's important for any matzav, meaning even when there's a matzav like you mentioned about internet addiction. Maybe we differ a little bit on this, but there are times where you need a professional, not someone who had a 6 months course, but someone who's good and someone who knows how to help. And then, you don't if you learn Tanya, it doesn't help you for a heart attack. Sometimes it brings bracha, but I'm saying the keli you need to be right. Sometimes we do need, but I think even when a person is at a matzav where he has a real addiction, where they're into it or something else, or alcohol, or whatever the case is, and he needs what we call professional help, but he still needs Chassidus. In other words, in other words, like we find in the Rebbe's letters, Ribui Otzim, and when the Rebbe talks about Inyanim Nafshim, we emotional issues and anxiety and like that. So there are many times where it's clear that the Rebbe holds the person just needs a good dose of bitachon, and then needs to learn Shara B'tochen, v'chulu v'chulu. There are letters, on the other hand, where the Rebbe is clear that you need to go to someone who's either a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Obviously, even that has to be done with Derech HaTorah, and that's a whole nother sugya. But even then, it's clear that the Rebbe says at the same time, you need to still strengthen the B'tochen. You need to still strengthen the Keshet to Chassidus and Kiyum HaMitzvahs and so on and so forth. Why? Because even when a person, doesn't matter, even if you're going for a health issue to a doctor, or you're going to a professional for a real mental health issue, you still need that kesher. You still need to know that you could free yourself. You still need that hope. You still need that kesher to the Eibishter. So it's never, even when you need it, it's never a substitute for Chassidus. Chassidus is the bread and butter. Chassidus you always need, because you need a person go through sometimes not trauma about the coffee in the morning, but a person sometimes go through a real trauma. There is such a thing as real trauma.
But let me you know, in whole discussion.
Let me just finish. So a person can go through sometimes a real trauma, and of course, maybe he needs help, but Chassidus is definitely the yesod. Chassidus will be the yesod of giving him the idea that he's not be'etzem trapped. A person is never trapped. No matter what they go through, a person is never be'etzem in prison. There's always the part of the year, no matter even the most difficult things that we go through, even if it's mamish at the extreme end of a real issue. But a person be'etzem is never trapped. That has to be always the yesod of healing and the yesod of getting better. How you get better? So sometimes you need other things as well, but the yesod always has to be that nakuda.
I'm sorry, I want to interrupt. I want to say something. You know, you're talking about, let's say, you're talking professionals and all that. You're talking about maybe 3% of the problem, 5%. So everybody's always talking about that. 95%, 98% are not on that problematic. They just need to know the keches hanefesh they have. They have to know they have enough shlichis. They have to know it's a tev. They have it's a harder. Where things are coming from, is it a goyish bekir b'chol? Is it coming? That's most of the. We're talking to an elam here, where 95% of the elam is not on that issue. Yet we consume so much time and so much effort to discuss. Not chashom, that's not important. Those 3%. But what they try to do is take what the 2-3% is needed, or 5%. I'm not don't happy by a number. I don't do, but it's definitely in the single digits. And then they try to say, okay, if that's there, then let's apply that type of healing to everybody, which is they're not there. That's not their problem. They have a healthy mind, they have a healthy, in a sense. You could teach them the meaning of Meir Shalt Alev. I remember all the Fabringers and Yudis Kislev. The Ikeim Chassidus is Meir Shalt Alev. And suddenly that's challenged today. That's challenged today. Whether Meir Shalt Alev. So why don't we move the discussion away from those areas where yesh la'ayin, how much is the professional is needed, how much this professional is needed. Let's go to talk about the 97% of the people that have a functioning heart, a functioning head, and let's just say this of reality. The reality is a Meir Shalt Alev. It's not because it says in Tanya Meir Shalt Alev. It's a fact. Meir Shalt Alev. There's an emotion. And that emotion can be controlled by a proper meichen that you're talking about, learning Chassidus. Learning Chassidus is not because the mitzvah of learning Chassidus, as I understand you, right? Learning Chassidus means to ingest, to bring in the koyach and the meyach, to be able to control the heart. And that is, so they'll come, it's not, we say that I'm at Pshittus, Meir Shalt Alev. That's a contested area. In the sense that we have to bring back the discussion to let's talk. The discussion is that you have nefesh geshel. My experience the last 2 years of one-on-ones and teaching sight to men, sight to women, this whole idea that we have the Yetzer Torah was to me is fundamental. So you get an idea in your head. Where's it coming from? To me, it's a learning and experience. By me, it was a life-saving format. I get an idea that drives me to I'm a place called prison, when I was there, and I get these ideas that are driving me to depression. I can't fall asleep. I'm challenged with depression, right? So I have to fight it back. I don't want to get depressed. I have to fight it back. So knowing that I have a Yetzer Torah, the first thing I ask myself, where is this thought coming from? right? Why am I asking the question? Because I have to label things. I'm not labeling anything. I won't know how to answer it. If I can identify it's coming from my Nefesh Habam Yitzhahara, then I know Barotzi Yitzhahara, Barotzi Teira Tavon. So I have to think in terms of Teira to undo the Yitzhahara wants me to think the way he thinks in order for me to get to where he wants me to get to. I don't want to get there. I don't want to get depressed. I want to be happy. So I learn and I understand and I bring my thoughts of betachon to undo, and I think that way. So you talk to people about this in your everybody today, not everybody, today it's common. You get an idea. The idea is a part of a thought. How are you dealing with it? There's no you know very well. There's no part of. Either it's kedusha or it's klipa. The question is klipa is nega, klipa is meis. There's no part of. This is a kosher. Okay, so I'd like to say, if we brought back the conversation to the mainstream of issues that people are struggling with, not the I brought an example of a girl that's struggling with a heavy thing. I shouldn't mention addiction. They're struggling with it. But even there, I think there's Yeshmakim lying. But let's bring the discussion back to what you're teaching students every single day. Most of the students need simply direction to understand who they are, what makes them work, was ist der Kirchenefesh, was ist der Levush, was heißt Machshav Divrei Ma'aseh, how it functions, where it takes you. And if you take it the way we professionals know from Tanya, let's see, from the Shai B'tochen, you'll see that this can give a person a healthy ability to have emotional health in every aspect of life.
So we're saying over here that the vast majority of people can turn to Chassidus for help with everyday issues. What if someone says that, look, I'm not, you mentioned Rebendel Futterfass before, you mentioned other great Chassidim, but I'm not up to that. I'm not holding there. I'm not, I'm just a regular person in 2022. What would you say to them?
You know, there's a letter of the Rebbe, a beautiful letter of the Rebbe. I mean, the Rebbe said this so many times, so many different ways, but there's a beautiful letter of the Rebbe where the Rebbe writes to an author. I don't know exactly the background, but the author was a Yiddish author, and he wrote a book about Chassidim from Amol, about Farbrengens, about Shtetlach of Chassidus, and it was called, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was called Vergangenem Yorim, something like that, about the past days. So the Rebbe writes a letter, and he's very soft with him in the beginning. He said, I read your letter, and you captured this so beautifully, and it was Chavanogiat, and the Rebbe built him up like your mamish were, like the Varmkeit and the Chassidishkeit. Your writing was very good, and you captured the whole thing. However, the Rebbe says, I have one very strong order. I'm not quoting verbatim, I'm just saying this is the teichen of the letter. The Rebbe says, I was very disappointed about the title of the book, Vergangenem Yorim, as if implying that it's something of the past. You know, the Rebbe said many, many times, Friedrich Rebbe said, Americans nicht anders. The Rebbe said many, many times, quoted it, and also said that Torah is nitzchis and Torah Shem Tov is nitzchis and so on. I think that's part of our whole issue today. I think that we're in Dor Shvi. In fact, we have the opportunity to take the Nyanim of Chassidus and apply them not only to settings and to lifestyle and life experiences that was Amol. We have the opportunity to apply them to real life, to what it means today. Now, we talk and know that every Dor has only Sionis and its own things, and of course, the Yeridus Adoris, we're not Chassidim like Remendel Butavas, etc., etc. So to give you an example, the Rebbe said, just a simple example, right? That I think the Rebbe told Reb Nissen, if I'm not mistaken, that that iskafi doesn't mean exactly the same thing as it used to mean. Amol used to mean that if a Bach and Lubavitch got two meat katletten, you would only eat one and leave it the other one. Okay, that's not iskafi today. Doesn't mean iskafi doesn't apply. Chas v'shalom, right? Averes HaTfilah applies. Limud Chassidus applies. Are we? In other words, the Rebbe says in that letter about Vergangenem Yorim, the Rebbe says, you'll tell me that it's much darker today. It's much more difficult, and this is, I think, this is written way before Gimel Tammuz. Now, right? And people obviously say today it's even darker and it's much more disconnected, and the challenges are big. The Yesh Leim and the challenges today, Beruchnius, are infinitely bigger. So the Rebbe says in that letter like this. The Rebbe writes to this author, and if you tell me that it's darker, so it's one of two answers. Either you make a mistake, it's not darker, And even Imtim Tzalemer, the Rebbe says, if you're going to say that Taka is darker, so you have to believe that we have the koiches. We have to believe they have the koiches to apply Chassidus, because it's not.
That's a very important. That's such an important good that you say now.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Because it was like this. We have to know, and all pratim of Chassidus. In other words, we have the koiches to apply to learn the concepts of Chassidus. On my weekly thing, I've said this many times that concept Chassidus means that first of all you have to learn the concepts k'moishahem. You have to learn them undiluted and understand the way they are at the biggest madregas. That's how Chassidus works. So we learn about Bittel, and we learn about Averis HaTfilah, we learn about Isbonenus, we learn about Aver Rabba and Aver Tanugim and Aver Seteres, and we learn Tanya, all these things, right? And then we need to know that it's real. Something that can be applied to every single day life. It can be applied to the way we serve the Eibishter, the way we overcome Yetzaharis, the way we overcome everything that we have. In our own way, each person according to their own way. It could be for one person. Iskafi means to get up a little bit early to dine with a minion. It could be for some person, someone else. He eats less ice cream. I don't know. Whatever. Each person is in their own level. But we should never make the fundamental mistake of thinking that was all good for Chassidim that were in a big madrega. But it wasn't. They were talking big Chassidim in a big madrega. David said at the end of his life, they asked him if he reached Avas Hashem, and he couldn't deny it. He said, "Absa Kitzel Gitar, yeah, it did affect me." Okay, that was a big chassid and a chanami, but that doesn't mean we can't have the mindset of Avas Hashem. We can't learn about it and learn more and more about it, and it should affect us. It should chip away at our being. In other words, it should make our life a little bit different. There's no question that it's the Yisod HaEmunah in the whole journey of Chassidus, so to speak, that it's something that is bringing Mashiach, and it's going all the way till Mashiach, and that we have to be able to apply it. Someone doesn't know exactly how to touch the inyanim of Tanya and Chassidus, and how to maybe translate it in their own lives. They have to talk to them, Asel Charav, have to talk to Mashpia, whatever the case is, to know how exactly in their particular signet. And it could be. I mean, there's a famous Yechidus that I've had with someone who I don't think it was even particularly from. And or definitely wasn't anywhere near Chassidus, and he asked the Rebbe if I can be called your chassid, right? Famous idea. And the Rebbe said, anyone who goes to sleep at night and makes a decision that tomorrow will be different than today, I'm proud to call him my chassid. In other words, Chassidus is about Achtas Hashem. It's about making the Eibishter real, which means in my life, it means I have to make a move towards that every day. Every day, as we become closer and closer to the Eibishter, for every person, it means something different. But it does mean developing a shkafa and a mindset and a reality in a sort of an avir where we make the Eibishter the center of our lives. That's what Chassidus is all about. We understand that the whole world is really nothing, and it's all part of the Eibishter's reality. And then we make our move in each person our own madrega towards that, right? So I think there's a famous what he's saying, Mashpim. There's three things, right? Mashka makes you shikr, and money makes you meshuggah. Chassidus makes you edel. So I think that sometimes we have to remember that word, because they say if you didn't, if you drank mashki, you didn't get shikr, you have to drink more. If you have money, you're not meshuggah, you don't have enough money. So Chassidus is the same thing. If you learn Chassidus didn't affect you, and you don't see what it has to do with you, you have to learn more Chassidus. Not Chas v'Shalom less. You have to learn more and immerse yourself in it, each person according to their own madrega, and then see how it can change your life, and it could change your life. But to think that Chas v'Shalom it's different today, unfortunately goes against the real fundamental of what Chassidus is. The whole idea was to take Chassidus today even deeper, and to take it and apply it even to places where maybe in previous generations it couldn't be applied. They didn't live in such choshev. We live in a tachan shein tach lamate menda, ridul lamate ba'aretz, as the Rebbe says in the Yishat Mamorim. So that's and the thing is, each person has to know how to apply the concepts are all nitzchi. Sometimes the application of the concept is different for me than a Mendel Futterfass, okay? For a Chassid and Lubavitch, it means he only ate one cutlet. For me, it's something else. Right? But the concept is 100%. The concepts are absolutely eternal. It's part of Torah Hinitzchis.
Yeah. Right.
I'd like to say it this way: in the story of the famous story of Milcham Pinchas with the diamond, with the crown jewel. Yes, the famous story. He saw the Chassidus on the floor and he got very angry. And the famous marshal about that the king had a diamond, and that was the only way to save the prince, and they tried everything else, didn't work. And finally, the king was willing to take out the crown jewel that affected the whole. I be the prince should be saved and be alive. And the doctor says, "Well, what are you talking about? it may not help you now, but so be a little go in is a bit leinsicher. So everybody always looks at this story as the mile of a father to a child. He's willing to give up his crown, and that story, Takir Pinchas was he was like representing he was worried about how the Abish is taking the Abish state, and you're throwing it around. What are you doing here? So that explains him. So listen, as the Abish is okay with it because he wants to save the Yiddish folk. But if we listen to the story, there's another part. We're the prince. We in this story, wow. The prince means in order for us to become healed, healing, we have to take in a little bit of the from the Kesser HaMelech. You have to take a little bit in. Now, there's a big difference. By the way, I heard this, and I heard this from Fabrengen, and the Yud, the Rebbe said that if you're using anything else other than Primus Atele to find emotional health or health for the for the generation, is the ganze Inyan von Verratzereiben, der das ich bin abgornischt. I remember, I think I once called you about it. I think I sent it to you. And it was shocking to me that Indian that will look. So the prince, we have to take in the Primus Atele, the Chassidus from the Kesser HaMelech, and here lies the thing. I think the way I'm sorry that there's a difference between you swimming in water or you're drinking water. A person can be swimming in water; he's totally immersed in it, head to toe. But if he doesn't take it in, he got in it. And if he drinks a little bit, that's always good. So if you're talking about your food, you're talking about the belt, the ocean of the Mayonis Chutza, the amount of Chassidus that is today in the Sikhs and Morim and all the forms that have been printed over the years since I was a bacher. So when you look at the Shafa, how it grew. I once was a proud owner at 15 years old of the whole library from Kohos, and it was nothing to compare what's today. So we're swimming in Chassidus, and it's translated, and you have tremendous ability to bring down Yonah Chassidus into our level. Yeah, but we swim in them, but the story is teaching us. This is what I think Bechol was saying. You have to partially take it in. You have to. Everybody got used to the word internalizing. You know what internalizing means? Internalizing means if you have a problem, you have an issue, you have your challenge, right? And that challenge is affecting your emotional health. It's affecting the way you feel. And you feel up, you feel down, you feel whatever it is. When's the last time we had such a thing? Did you look into Chassidus and find out what's the Teda about how to heal it? How does Teda understand the situation and then use it successfully? Well, that's internalizing it. Internalizing, got used to very good English, even when I went to Al-Teda. My English is still Al-Teda the Kabissel. But internalizing means using it, quenching your thirst. It means I had a good day today. Do I think Kechevetzim Yodi or do I think about Einim Levade? That's a question. If I had a bad day today, do I think about the Ina of Nesoyan and Bittel and Betachem, or do I rather think something went wrong and I got to go to the next health book over there in Barnes Noble? That's the question. Well, what are we using, and what are we using to run our lives? And that's what internalizing means, and that's the story of Yutas Kislev. There's Evan HaMelech, and it's such powerful medicine that even if a drop goes in, we'll be healed. And we have to be smart enough to open our mouth and use it. And if you're talking about Chassidim, I'll agree to you. You don't see Chassidim that we saw before, but we do see plenty of younger light and plenty of Baruch Hashem Yisrael that are using Chassidus and are using Chassidus successfully and are running a peaceful life. The Ruyikite and the Chanefes and Chaim that you see by a year that's taking in the waters of Chassidus, match him up to any other guy that's taking not Kesser HaMelech. And I venture to tell you, and I'm sure, what you will see we're not like mental 45. We don't have to. My father had always a saying: if you don't have it, it means you don't need it. But the point is, I say it a little bit differently. I use this if Chassidus can help people in Russia under the most extreme conditions to remain connected to the Eibishter. So Baruch Hashem, we're not on the dire conditions, but there has to be something that we can use. If Chassidus can help a guy mental foot, be happy. If Chassidus can help a person like my father, I mean, this is all last generation. You go through life and have a healthy attitude, not become depressed and lost, and be productive lives, seeing a war. So, Baruch Hashem, we don't see a war, but it has to be something that we can use. Where do we get this idea that we can't use if I can? So we don't have to take gulps, take a little drop. So that's the way I would, if I can add something, that's what my idea.
Okay. One of the kindness you hear people have is that Chassidus doesn't address directly the issues that they have. A person has issues in business and shalom bayis and all types of nisyonis, whatever it is, and you go over Barnes and Noble's self-help book. So you have a book on the topic and it explains everything step by step. And you open up a Sefer Chassidus and you don't see those issues addressed there. So how do you? Let's say someone does want to, they're masking and they say that Chassidus is the answer, but tshuva, Tanya is the tshuva, the tshuva is the chol hashaylos. But how do they actually go about doing that? How do they find the answer to their particular issue in Chassidus?
So can I jump in there a little bit? I'm very passionate about this topic. First of all, Chassidus is not a self-help book. Chassidus doesn't tell you, when you come home at night, your wife says this, you should say like this. If your husband says this is what you do it. No, that's not what Chassidus is about. Chassidus is about telling the person in a whole different frame of mind. When you do that, then a lot of things fall into place. That doesn't mean on practical. Sometimes a person needs practical advice, so that's why you have a mashpia. You go, you should teach you what does it mean practically, but it's not supposed to be that. So I want to just address, because you talked about, and again, this is not the same discussion as before. This is talking about now people conflating and confusing Chassidus with self-help. It's very important to understand that, especially the more modern self-help book. I don't know what you were talking about before. I guess it's some publishing company, but the self-help books that is going around, the self-help sprach that is around today. And I'm not talking about mental health issues now. There's a whole nother sugya. People just want to, talk about relationships and shalom bayis issues and so on and so forth, creating boundaries and all these other
raising children also.
All these things, right? So there's such an unbelievable chiluk, an infinite distance between the way it's approached, especially recently, and the way it's approached al pi Torah and al pi Chassidus befrat. The very word self-help is already gives it away. It's about self. How can I make myself better? The whole yesod of Chassidus is to move away from self. Right? Now, that's a fundamental difference. Now, I know people get very nervous when we talk about that because, you're not supposed to be a shmata, and I'll bring you rayas from Chassidus and from sichas and so on and so forth. But it's not about being a shmata. It's about being higher. It's about being not yourself. It's about being part of something much greater than yourself. Becoming, like you see, again, you see the old Chassidim, they were such happy people. They were mamish bittul dikayidin, and they spoke about bittul, and they put down themselves a lot of the times, and they were very happy. It didn't make them negative at all, right? And certainly it shouldn't be about making someone else feel bad. In other words, not about putting other people down. Shalom Marcha was talking about understanding the neshama, understanding the tayrkeit of a yid, and we're a prince, and so on and so forth. But it certainly means, like, again, going back to the previous discussion about applying Chassidus today, right? Bittul is a fundamental concept in Chassidus, for example, right? And it's something we should be talking about, and talking about much more. We should talk about all the time, because it is such a fundamental concept talked about in Chassidus, and by the Rebbe, in fact, he took it even deeper. He didn't make it less, he made it more. If you look at the Rebbe's Mamorim on a Haskolodik level, you'll see the Rebbe talks about dargis, levels of bittul that was never spoken about before Chassidus. I mean, talk about the Maimer of Margaret of Pumadrava, for example, where the Rebbe talks about mamish, about a yid being not even any tziyur, even a tziyur of Torah mitzvah, just mamish nothing. He's just there to serve the Eibishter, right? Etc. Etc. So Chassidus wasn't there to give you practical aids of how to raise your children, or how to have shalom bayis. I mean, there are practical things. There's many letters of the Rebbe's on this topic, and we need to do these topics also al pi Torah, of course. But it only works if you have the foundation. When you have the foundation of Chassidus, where you move away from self and you're ready to give yourself up for someone else, for something else, then a lot of these problems are preventable, right? You talked about Shalom Bayis, one of the biggest problems today in Shalom Bayis is that people are so absorbed in themselves. We live in a very self-absorbed world and a very self-centered world, that people find it very hard to give them to be mevater, to give up for someone else, to noch geben, to right. When you don't need to go to a course to tell you that it's a good idea once in a while you have to compromise. If you learn Chassidus, is b'derech hamelech. Your needs become less. Your needs become less. Your focus on self becomes less. Now, the lack of focus on the foundation of Chassidus is bittul. Now, does that mean that you don't have to take care of yourself? Of course, and we need something, we need to have it. Of course, we need to take care of ourselves. We spoke about this before, is a mitzvah in the Torah, etc., etc. But what's the yisod? What's the foundation? The foundation is it's not about me. In today's world, the foundation is it is about me. And sometimes the strategies are even good, but it's all about me. It's about making me better. This is a chiluk ikra, fundamental difference between Chassidus and about modern self-help. Does that mean we shouldn't have courses on chinuch? No, of course we should. Does that mean we shouldn't have courses on shalom bayis? We definitely should. But it should be al pi Torah. It should be with the proper yesod. It should be taking the yesodus of Tanya, taking the yesodus of Chassidus. That whole foundation of we're not about ourselves. And then some people need to be tight choice. You need tight choice. What does it mean? So how does it play out on a practical level? We have a machlokes. This one says this, I said this. How do we solve it? But the solutions and the strategies and the practical eitzes, which are all very important. And you find that Rebbe giving in chinuch particularly, that Rebbe giving a lot, even in shalom bayis, that Rebbe gives a lot, right? And mashpim talk about it, but it always has to be with the foundation of it's not about me. It's about the Eibishter. But what does the Eibishter want from me? How does the Eibishter want me to serve him? And then help me out now. I've got that yesod. I've learned Chassidus. I'm trying to apply that. I'm just going to someone who has the same mindset and asking now, just do me a favor and give me a little bit of eitzes, how to translate a practice. Okay, that's not a problem. That's fine. And that should be. And we should be having more discussions on that. And I think maybe today we have to have more because we have a big problem today. We see that relationships break down, all these things like that, but it comes from a bit of an akuda of this whole generation is we building a very weak and self-centered people. That's why Chassidus is even more important today. The whole nakuda of bittul, but that has to be the yesod. You're not going to find you don't start by looking for practical eitzes. You start by building a yesod. That yesod is Chassidus. Then you want to know how to touch shorois in every part of your life. Look, you read letters, you go to a mashpia, you go to a Chassidish discussion about it, you go to someone who's al pi Torah, can lead that discussion, and then you apply it practically. I hope that clears it up a little bit. I don't know, that's why.
It seems that people are almost they prefer the self-help books because they don't want to be about themselves. It's much more difficult to, so the self-help, it kind of lets you be yourself and have your yesh, retain your yeshus.
However, this is what we need to try. It's Yutas Kislev, right? So we have to say l'chaim and talk about this. We have to clarify a couple of things here. First of all, even selfishly, by the way, we know that bittul is hard work. Nowadays, befrat, it's a very me world. Bittul is hard work. Nowhere in Chassidus does it promise you it's going to be easy. It's Aveda. It's called Aveda for a reason. Aveda means ibud oires. It means hard work, right? However, if you want to talk about talk about grobgeret, talk about selfishly, what brings bigger simcha? We know that there is a Amarim, particularly in Chayesara, there's always a Amarim about bittul brings simcha, right? In other words, at the end of the day, a person who's absorbed and trapped in themselves cannot be really happy, and ultimately cannot be successful in all the inyanim of life. Because once you're stuck in yourself, you're stuck in yourself. You can read as much books as you want, but if you're stuck in yourself, look what's going on today. We have thousands of self-help books, and it's the most miserable generation. We have so many things. We have so much gashmias. We have so much what we need. We have technology at our fingertips. We have so many things. We should be the happiest people. And this is a generation where happiness is at its all-time low because the foundations are missing, right? The Yisodus are missing. The Yisodus of moving away from self. And also sometimes it's misunderstood. Some people say moving away from self is like always seen as a negative thing. Like I'm nothing and I'm mishmata. No. I just heard of Fabrengen this morning. I was listening to Fabrengen on my shver, Melech Civil, all of Hashalom, Yutas Kislev Fabrengen. And he talks about a very posh thing, but he brings it out beautifully. And he says, we have a nefesh abamis, we have a nefesh elokis, we have a neshama, we have a guf. In Tanya, it talks very harsh terms about the guf and the nefesh abamis, right? And the prokim there before Lamed Beis, right? So he brought it out. He said it very nicely. You have to know that you talk about your guf. Your guf's a shtickle nevela. That's what it is. It's a garnished, right? The only thing is, what's Chassidus? Chassidus is about bringing the neshama into the guf. When the neshama comes into the guf and it starts to give the guf chayas, all of a sudden the guf becomes an important thing. It becomes a vehicle of Torah mitzvahs. Bittul is not about I'm nothing, because who's the I? Yeah, on a conscious level, Tanya says that we're not like Hillel, so we have Shabbamis. But later on in Tanya says that Pneumius, a yid's eye is the neshama, his nefesh lakis is his nitzitz laki, it's his connection to the Eibishter. Fakir, the bittul is about being mevatel. When we say going away from self, we don't mean going away from the neshama chas v'shalom. We mean going away from the yeshus that comes in the nefesh habamis. And when we break that, even in the harshest terms, like it says in Tanya, it's not about fakir. The real me comes out. The more, but the real me is the Eibishter. The real me is my neshama, my nefesh lakis, the chelek lekami mal mamish. And the real me comes out. Not only I'm not nothing, I'm fakir. I'm part of the great. I'm part of the Ein Sof. I'm part of the infinity of the Eibishter. Which means I can accomplish more. I can do more. I can be mekarev nachayidin. I can learn more. I can daven more. I can do so much more in the area of Avodas Hashem. And therefore, and I'm happier. Again, going back to the old Chassidim, the happiest people. They talked about Bittul all day and all night, and they were the happiest people. Right?
So, Mordechai.
I heard that I was learning the Dvamachas last week, and he brings over there an interesting, a definition for Bittless, not used much. He says it's Ibegegebenkeit. He quotes Tede Shalom.
Yeah.
Ibegebenkeit can only bring you and battle yourself. So when you Ibegeben to somebody, and this is Sai in a worldly place, when you Ibegeben somebody, talking about Shalom Bayis, so when you Ibegeben to your spouse, you're not getting weaker, you're getting stronger, because then your spouse is Ibegeben to you. Now you have a unit made out of two. In davening, you say ha'oiz v'ha'anova. Oiz is Starkheit, anova is doch Bittel. Anov. Sagt man, oiz and anova goes together. Punkt verkehrt. Oiz and anova means when you want oiz, when you want to be stark. Sei anov, because anov allows you to connect to keches higher than you, and now you can absorb higher keches. Bittel is the first of Bittel. Most of I once came into 770. As I look back in the sikh, I was a younger man. I thought it was, and the Rebbe was then it was Chai Nissen. The Rebbe's father's Chai Nissen. Yeah. So he was talking about his father, Rebbe Yitzchak, and about his Mesilas Nefesh to make sure that the matzah were kosher. It was like the whole story. He's talking to Tzivos Hashem, the Rebbe was talking to Hashem, and he's explaining the Starkheit. He went to Kremlin, he went to the fight for it, and they got it. And listening to it, just remember that this is one of those memories that you haven't had a big effect on me listening to it. It sounded like the Rebbe was extolling the virtues and the strengths of his father, that he was a strong charactered person, and he was able to overcome the mighty Communist Party, and he fought it. And then you heard the Rebbe say, it's not that he felt strong and empowered, because he was doing Ratzon Hashem, so he connects that to the Eibishter, and when he connects to the Eibishter, they have all the keches you want to have. The Rebbe shifted, maybe clarified that he wasn't talking about, we're talking about a person who wants to be empowered. And it goes back to where we started the conversation. You want to be empowered. How much power do you have at the end of the day? How much power do you have? Yeah. But what happens if you're allowed to be something to be connected to the Eibishter, to Torah mitzvahs? And the bittul means you give yourself place to connect. The Eibishter is coming to you, because the Eibishter can only be to that which is bottled. B'meila, you're not giving anything up. Fakert, you're always, you get a greater strength than before. So in any sikh you learn from Yitzchok is the Inyan from Yireh. Fakert. So the bittul there made him a bigger kayach, because he was able to avoid the klippos from plishtim, right? So it's not taich It's not like when you're mevatli yourself, you're giving up. You're giving up of your yeshes, of thinking that that's why he's talking about animal vada. Animal vada is very practical. It means there's only Abish. There's only Abish to wake up, smell the coffee, and understand that there's only one that sees Abish there. And if you're going to try to go somewhere else, you're going to hit a brick wall somewhere because it's not true. There's only one Eibishter. It's not you that's deciding one Eibishter. The fact of life is there's only one Eibishter. So the smart guy understands only one Eibishter. So what does he do? He wants to accomplish Musa game the Kech Eibishter. Musa hat mitzvah, Musa hat das not better. And then back to the starkste Sach. So this is one of the. That means it's smart Ibegebenkeit. Ibegebenkeit means everybody can picture in their mind. And dus Ibrigem some Rab, this Ibrigem Hossa Sachma Keches, right? This Ibrigem. That's the word. So Bittless doesn't mean. So by the way, that's one point. I want to say another point. I was Baruch Hashem Shlichus for a year in Atlanta, and I went to Emory College there. And at one time, I bumped into a bunch of missionaries. So I because I'm eyeing in the ganze Sugya. Missionaries come with Rayas and whatever. So I read something very interesting about this how they work, and maybe I heard it from J.J. Hechtel. So I don't know. That's a while ago. But the Nakuda is there's no question that the missionary asks today that wasn't asked and answered already, and they know the answer. And the only reason they're throwing psukim at you is not because they think they found a pasaraya, shteitek is vu was when it means this, it means that. They know that the answer. They know that what they're saying is not true. So why do they do? They're looking for a guy that doesn't know the answer, and that's what they're saying. It. And the second you give them the answer, they're gone. Mamish, I saw it. One time they came over there. So I got up in front of all the students. I started giving them. They realized they talked to somebody who knows something. They went for the hills. Yeah, because they know it's not like they're coming. Yeah. So I'm just listening to the Mechol. Yeah. There's no question in emotional health that wasn't asked and answered already. It's not Taich. We have to figure out. We have a problem today. How do you take Chassidus and apply and get emotional health? This is a question. This is already since Chassidus came out. This is Primus Atayda, Rachmana Liba Boy. The Liba Boy is a healthy heart. So he keeps on quoting answers from the Rebbe. What does he say? What he's saying is there's no question that was answered about depression, about anxiety, and that sometimes it's a simple need for betochen, sometimes it's saying you have to go somewhere with betochen. These questions have been asked, have been answered. So why are we again asked the question? Why? For the same reason. They're hoping you don't know the answer. Best domain and abazelig the answer, and then to shift you away from the waters, from the living waters of Torah, and bring you to the Bittless nishborim. That won't give you nothing. That's what they're trying to do. Because if you speak to anybody that has a shtickle idea, any shliach, any rov, any mashpia, a shtickle idea in keches hanefesh, in Tanya Chassidus, he'll clearly give you an answer. And if he doesn't know it, he'll give you somebody who doesn't know it. So everybody, how come they keep on saying niton? Because for the guy, it's actually for the guy who doesn't know the question was asked and answered. Later, wow, there's a question of would answer. I wanted to put that into the conversation. What do you think that I could thank?
Good, masking.
Yes, masking. Okay.
I want to touch just one more point. One more
ja, the moment that I'm answer for yeah, I see. I'm my you ever speak to somebody who has a bit of knowledge in it and doesn't have an answer? He has an answer. But they keep on saying, because they're trying to find people that don't know there's an answer, and that they buy into something they shouldn't buy into. And it's Bittless nishborim. It's Bittless nishborim. You're talking to somebody, I was through Gehenim and back, you understand? And the only way I survived, because I drank from the waters of Torah, the emes. I had the emes, and that's the way I was able to survive. I can talk to you from today till tomorrow about experiences that you would label traumatic. Yeah, I talk about it. Why it's not trauma? Right? Okay, so maybe it's a whole different sugya. I don't know how much time we have on this thing, but why? Because I took it like I understood what I'm going through as a yid. Not that it wasn't painful, not that I didn't understand where I was in, what was happening to me, that the damage and losses, but I was able to use from the Maim Chaim of Torah and the chesed from the Eibush that I taka had a bittul to you, the evidence bittul to, and use it for the matzav I was in, which is mamish. You're talking about dirib tachtenim shein tachel matlein menu. It's tachnish b'tachtenim. And how to live with it. So if this can work for a place like that, okay.
I got one more Indian that you mentioned earlier about Chassidus and self-help. So you have maybe some people who claim that Chassidus doesn't have answers, but then you have at the other end, you have those who claim that Chassidus, they're kiviyachol promoting Chassidus. Chassidus is very good, but they're promoting it as a self-help manual. So they find all types of remazim and words, and that becomes a whole, that becomes, we found self-help of Chassidus, self-care and self-love and all types of inyanim. I just want to, there's one example recently. There's a famous podcast, the Headlines podcast. And he quotes a mimer in the Kutei Torah that Keilu, the Alter Rebbe speaks about the importance of self-love. This is what he says. So I'm very interested to know what does the Alter Rebbe say. I look at the mimer. It says the Alter Rebbe is talking about tshuva and returning to yourself. But what type of self he's talking about? He's talking about returning to the Eibishter, to the etzem of who a yid is. The mimer it says that you have to do that the hemshach yanim over there in the mimer. So we have a problem where people are promoting Chassidus, they're promoting Chassidus is Gewalt Gezach, and we have to find all our answers of Chassidus, but then it becomes diverted. It becomes that Chassidus tells us how all these secular and modern self-help ideas. I'm wondering what you.
So I don't have any tightness to that podcast you mentioned, because I don't think he considers himself someone who's an expert in Chassidus, but but I think it's extremely dangerous that that's happening within Chassidim, within Chassidus. It's a very dangerous thing. I think it's sometimes people think that in order for it to be, I'll answer like this. I give a weekly shir. This is more on shlichus and it's more for the people who are not yet, and it's called personal growth. That's what it's called. The shir is called personal growth. And I use the oasis that will be good for them, and it attracts people. Don't even go to shul and on Kippur. Some of them. My idea is to introduce ideas of Torah. But even though I never do that, I never like with all the self-help concepts of I might use a terminology, which I'm maybe for good or for bad, but I'm a little bit familiar with. I'll use that terminology, but they know that I will challenge it. In other words, talking about creating boundaries, for example, that's a very popular thing today, creating boundaries as a protection of self, right? I found that even to an audience that is completely, one second. I found that even in an audience that's completely kaviyachol distant yet, at least they're not yet connected, mamash boy from Goli to thing. If you give them a proper Torah perspective, it is very niskabel, and they get it if you explain it properly. Lately in the shir, I gave it I just want to bring out the point. I gave a shir. There's a book, and it's a very beautiful thing about someone that came that took care of the anxiety through doing Tanya, etc., etc. And in the book, the author describes the idea of bittul. And I gave the shir a little bit on the book because it's a book that people are reading, and then it's a bit self-helpish and so on and so forth. But it's kaviyachol based on Tanya, and she talks about bittul in the book, and teaches bittul like this: that she discovered this gewaldic idea called bittul. She said that bittul means that not everything is about me. So she said I had to make that shift about everything is about me to not everything is about me. So if you think slowly, what that means, right? That's not what it says in Chassidus at all, right? The Taich of Bittless Chassidus says nothing is about me. It's not a shift from I'm not going to be self-centered. I'm going to be a little bit not self-centered. Like a little bit. I'm going to understand not everything's about me, right? I'm saying that, and I experimented on this audience, and I gave them a whole shir about Bittel. But with the Hagdama that you have to first develop a hashkafa, and I'm not saying that we all. I said I haven't reached that madrega. You won't reach that madrega. But then I gave a dugma. I said how we can apply it to ourselves and each person. And I spoke about shmiras mitzvah. They can take on a mitzvah, and for them that will be their expression of bittul. And so even something they don't understand and they don't. Today there's it's very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous to take the and sorry. When just going back to that shir. Even then, even though I try to give the hashkafa on what they call modern and relevant issues, I try to give it al Chassidus. I never call the shir Chassidus because I don't want even them to make a mistake that Chassidus is about self-help. Chassidus is not about self-help, and I think it's very, very dangerous that the exact opposite is happening today. That people are taking the concepts that they're comfortable with, the concepts that they think people will like to hear, very much about self-actualization. Self-love, unconditional self-love, and so on and so forth, and somehow finding Makoros and touching into Chassidus. Take something, for example, like self-love. That mistake, which is completely right. It is a Torus Yesodi. It's impossible. I don't know how you can learn Tanya, for example, and say that everything about me is good. Everything about me is good. I don't know. The Tanya I learned says that the yeshus about my nefesh abamis is beferish not good. It's a hell of a hester and a lakus, and it has to be in his battle. Does that mean I'm bad? Does that mean I'm a shmata? No. Like we spoke about before, Shalom very beautifully. It means removing. Yeah, is potentially the nefesh abamis good? Yes, but not the yeshus nefesh abamis. Nefesh abamis yeshus is like a molek. Shvirosan zuita konosan. I don't know. There's no way to be mileage. You can't be Mila Yeshus. Yeshus is a hell of a hester and a lakus. Yeah, there's idea of Vayigba Liba B'Dark Hashem and so on. All these details, but b'cholos we learn in so many places that Yeshus is, especially on Morim around Purim time, the Yeshus is a treifazach. We all have that, and we have to mevatel it. Is everything about me good? No. The Rebbe used to speak to kids. I think maybe Shalom talked about before about Yetzirah Yetzirah. I think maybe we need to go back to learning the sichas that Rebbe Retz Kinder, basics of Yiddishkeit. No Yetzirah, the Yetzirah. Yetzirah needs to. You have to send him from Schicken Pfeifen, not those exactly, but the Yetzirah. If listen to Yetzirah, must not listen to Yetzirah. Self-love needs to be broken down. What is self-love? Of course, like you say, you have to love yourself because you have to love the lakus that's in you, and you have to know that that the Eibishter gives you the nothing that we are, the nothing that I am. The Eibishter says, but you can make a derivative tachtenim. You can be connected to me. It's an unbelievable gift. We talk mamish garnish, but you can talk but you this garnish can mamish be dove to the Eibishter. It's unbelievable, right? But that's very different Isis than using modern Isis and touching and Chassidus. It is a very dangerous. Unfortunately, I think it's extremely dangerous. And it's a distortion of Chassidus. It's not what Chassidus is. Does that mean that there aren't other challenges that need to be addressed today? I think we need to talk about this. There are. People do have challenges that for example, you said a mashpia in yeshiva. Not every bocha that comes to yeshiva has the yesodus of this and can do it automatically. And sometimes they're coming, with issues and complexities that maybe if they had the yesodus wouldn't be there, but they don't have the yesodus. And I guess what we do need to learn, and I'll say this, bring us to the conversation, like you said, we do need to learn, of course, that we need to understand how learning Chassidus, true Chassidus, proper Chassidus, can be really the refuah and bring real simcha for and bring that inner calmness and that simcha and serving the Eibishter and so on and so forth. But what we shouldn't do also is be dismissive. I think that's what some people find difficult. They find difficult that they do raise a challenge that they have, and even if it's a challenge that they shouldn't have. And if they were really learning Chassidus, have these sodas that they wouldn't have, and it's just some, a little anxiety or a little yeshus or into themselves and just a misunderstanding, and therefore they have these problems. I guess nowadays we have a shvach hador. What we shouldn't do, it's like the Rebbe says, for example, that small doichim in mekareves. Today we have to be more yamin. So I think the same thing when people bring up, we have to give them the undiluted product of Chassidus. But maybe Amol, we could say, maybe that doesn't work today. We have to a little bit be more understanding and not dismissive. But not dismissive doesn't mean not dismissive and therefore to start redoing Torah. Not dismissive, in other words, the tzugang has to be a little bit different. The tzugang has to be more with kiruv and understanding. Understand you have that problem and let's talk about it. But then the answer has to be at the end of the day the same answer. Torah is nitzchis. And showing them how they can apply that nitzchis HaTorah, but not to change Chassidus and change the terminology of Chassidus and bring foreign and fremde Zachim, which are Hepach Torah, and somehow find a way to touch the voice into the Mamorim. That's extremely dangerous. But I'm bringing that up because I think that's what people confuse with issues. In other words, sorry?
Go.
Two issues?
People confuse the two issues. People confuse that they sometimes feel dismissed, and I've heard this in Baruch. I've spoken to Baruch about this, and they feel they were dismissed, and they were thinking, and therefore the answer is, well, then let's change law chassidus. No, they're two separate things. The answer is that someone needs to listen to you a bit better. Someone needs to not put you down right away. I get that. But the answer you need is not different to the answer in the previous door. Applied a little bit differently, maybe, but the answer is true chassidus. And that's what we have to try and strengthen around you to Kislev for us.
I think we started out if somebody's calling you a mimer, and that's where he learned it, and he didn't understand it. I'm sure he didn't do it in a bad way. I didn't verstanden. Let me say, at least MS is if you're learning Torah and you make a claim of a pshat, then there's a constant but a minimum. You can't say, how can you say this? It doesn't it doesn't follow what it says there. So in an honest discussion, you'll have to come to either adjustment and understanding from the first one to make it, or make it how to make it work. So, but that's a healthy conversation. If there is a conversation, at least the conversation is within the Mayim Chaim. It's within the Torah. I think the bigger danger is when you easy also and you want to look for Bittless bottom. I think that's anything that's not the way it should be set over properly has its danger. But I think it's less of a danger when you're referencing a mimer. And then you see something, you say, how can you learn pshat? You have to learn pshat over there. As long as it's honest conversations, I think it's less of a danger.
On one hand, it's less of a danger. On the other hand, it's a little bit more dangerous because
I think it's more dangerous actually.
Someone who's faithful to the sources will realize that we don't do that. We don't go for self-help books. We go for Chassidus. When a person starts teaching Chassidus, and I just brought him as an example this podcast because he's not his fault. He's not familiar with Chassidus. But unfortunately, we have within our circles, we have people who are applying Chassidus, applying Chassidus.
Good.
And they're Makarev, like the Rebbe says, not Makarev on La Torah, but they're Makarev the Torah, the Chassidus to the. So that's a problem. Yeah.
So this has been a problem since Torah was given. Has been a problem. So we're doing at least we're consistent. It's constant, but there's a conservative conform. Everybody's doing the same thing, and that's not shocking. The shocking thing is, I just want to add some different angle.
Both different dangers, and there's something you have to look out for.
Yeah.
Very good. Any final anything you want to add?
I have to add something. Well, let Michal go first.
I think we covered yeah.
I think this kiss was a good time to remind everyone that Tanya, the Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya, and it says that's the whole Tanya is based on that. So this is accessible. We just need to get into it, and we need to. If we don't understand, we need to speak to a mashpia. We need to speak to someone who knows. We have to listen. We have to listen to people talk maybe a bit more varm today, but we have to bring back the real. Not bring back. That's what I'm saying. To teach undiluted Chassidus and understand that Chassidus is nitzchi and applies in every matzav and in every situation, every environment.
Yeah. I think you found that right in the Agdom of Tanya, where he says that I'm going to put it down in Sefer, and realizing that not everybody has can understand how to find the answer. He says he answers all the questions. He answers all the questions.
You have to go to and the people have to be able to.
With the mashpiyim, it's very important that there's an achrayus. Those that do have the clear understanding of undiluted Chassidus should share that understanding, because there's so much confusion out there that we need the clarity.
Yeah. So what do you do when those people that do have the clarity and for whatever reason they say to go to Bittless Nishbarim, and so that is so that maybe that's what he meant. And when I learned, I was told that means that every answer to your question in life is found here, and he was able to look forward, and because that's how he says the Chayre Yeshua gewesen He was able to das of everybody. So where did I want to finish with this thought? What is it? This is the Rebbe Rayatz writes that a person finds himself lost in the jungle. Finds lost in the jungle. How does he find himself lost in the forest? He finds lost in the forest. A person is not born in a forest. How do he find himself there? So how did he get there? He was going to Derech HaMelech, and then he decided he's going to veer off a little bit. He's going to go on the shoulder. I'm paraphrasing, that's the exact word for it, but and then why? Because on the shoulder he's still going on the same road, and then he has to have a shoulder. I want to walk on the grass, and then he chaps the grass and walk in the forest, nice shade, and he can still see that the grass is there, the shoulder is there, and the road is there. He can still maintain a direction towards the ear. He's still centered, yeah. But after a while, if he keeps on doing this, he keeps on moving a little bit over, he'll get himself lost to the point where he doesn't know how to get to Yerem. So what do you have to do? You have to get back on the road. You have to get back on the road that takes you there. We obviously are in a situation where people are lost. We're lost in the forest. So the question is not to go further, deeper and deeper in the forest, and noch a patch. Wie is men angekommen ahead? How did we get here? What thought, and this is the real, I think this is, how do we get to a point where do you imagine yourself when you were in 770 to have this conversation? I never did. Did you imagine yourself 20 years ago? Maybe never. So how did we get here? The answer is not, again, think yourself, which is the first move you went out off the road? Where did you veer off? And then correct then, get back on the road. I think this is
a very complicated question. I think it's for another discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
I live in the world of simplicity. By me, I live in the simplicity. I also say a poshet and was a sagen. I try maybe and the Tamuruk. Yeah, Tamuruk Tev Hashem. Versuch was sein, that is nicht good. You taste it, you see. There's nothing more geschmack than living a life of a year. Nothing more mitzvahs, learn Torah, nigel Torah, primus Torah. Nothing more geschmack. Nothing more geschmack having a moon. They be betoch. They be you walk better darke. Yakov darke. What are you looking for? I good Yom Tov, everybody's like a bench, all the brachas. Thank you.
Yom Tov and a good year.
Yeah.
The same.
Yeah. Thank you.